Welcome to A Year in the Bible with Daily Grace. The Bible tells one big story of redemption, and we want to spend 5 minutes every day journeying through the Bible from start to finish and exploring how all of it points to Jesus.
Welcome back to A Year in the Bible with Daily Grace. My name is Katie, and we're diving into Exodus 4 through 6 today. We are jumping right back in today with Moses at the burning bush, right in the presence of God. God tells Moses that he will lead the Israelites out of deep oppression. At the beginning of chapter 4, we find Moses doubting himself, asking what ifs. We've all been there, right? The Lord kindly meets Moses here in his doubt, and God promises he will be with Moses and gives him 3 miraculous signs to perform before Israel and Pharaoh. His staff turns into a snake, his hands get leprosy and then are healed, and he turns water from the Nile River into blood. Still, Moses is paralyzed by his shortcomings. He says, "I am slow in speech, God." After all, you must be eloquent to convince a Pharaoh to release his slaves, right? Moses begs the Lord to send someone else. God is angry, but he does not remove Moses' role as leader from Israel. Instead, he gives Moses a helper. His brother Aaron will serve as the mouthpiece for Moses, communicating what God has told him to the people of Israel and to Pharaoh. Moses packs up his family and journeys back to Egypt to begin his adventure. But something interesting happens along the way. God tries to kill someone. Yep, you heard that right. This passage is incredibly confusing. Scholars have been trying to figure it out for centuries, but there is still no consensus. We aren't sure if God tried to kill Moses or his firstborn son. We don't know God's motive, although there are a lot of scholars that think it's because Moses broke the covenant God gave to Abraham by not circumcising his son. And we definitely don't know what his wife Zipporah means when she calls Moses the bridegroom of blood. This passage is hard and really confusing, and it's okay. What we do know is that the blood kept God's wrath at bay, and that is the theme we will see time and time again, whether it's in the Passover that is coming soon or in the crucifixion of Jesus, who gave his blood to save us. In chapter 5, Aaron and Moses visit Pharaoh for the first time. They ask Pharaoh to let the Hebrew people go on a 3-day trip to worship Yahweh. Pharaoh responds just as God said he would, and does not let the Hebrew people go. Instead, he forces them into stricter, more grueling labor. The Pharaoh's anger grew against Moses. They blamed him for making the work more strenuous. Moses again questions God. He asks God why. In Moses' mind, he went to Pharaoh on the Lord's behalf and was severely disappointed. The people of Israel lost trust in him. In response to Moses' doubt, God reminds him again of his name, Yahweh. It's a reminder that God is a promise maker and a promise keeper. God reaffirms his covenant with Moses and the Hebrew people. He will redeem them from slavery. He will lead them out of Israel. He will be with them, and he will show them the promised land. Right before the end of chapter 6, we see what looks like a random genealogy of 6 generations of the tribe of Levi. Why does this matter? Well, Levites were priests. They spoke to God on behalf of the people and to the people on behalf of God. Moses and Aaron are a part of this lineage, reaffirming them as the right guys to be spokesmen of the Lord to Pharaoh. Though Moses didn't yet believe in himself, his leadership was no happy accident. Throughout the book of Exodus, we see many parallels between the Exodus story and the gospel. Both stories are of God redeeming his people, but Exodus is only a shadow of the gospel arrows pointing towards Jesus. In these chapters, we see God's chosen leader doubt him. We see fear blind him from trusting God. We see God establishing his covenant over and over again to a forgetful Moses. Jesus, however, is our perfect and better Moses. Moses was sent to deliver God's people from slavery to Egypt. Jesus was sent to deliver his people from slavery to sin. Moses said, "God, please send someone else." Jesus says, "Not my will, but yours, Father." Moses says, "I am slow in speech." And Jesus says, "I speak only what the Father tells me to." While Moses focuses on his own insecurities and fear, Jesus is focused on nothing but what the Father has for him. Mankind needed this perfect and better Moses to end slavery once and for all. We needed a final redemption accomplished only by God's Son. Our practical application this week is to realize that we are often like Moses, doubting God. Our view of God can be blocked by the what-ifs of an unknown future. What if they reject me? What if I let people down? What if I fail? We ask God to send someone else just like Moses did. But we are missing the point. It's in our shortcomings that we learn to rely on God. In 2 Corinthians, Paul talks about a lesson he's learned following Christ. Paul writes, "But he said to me, 'My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me.'" Paul teaches us that we don't have to be paralyzed when fear comes knocking. Instead, we can rest in the gospel. We can know that Jesus has already defeated anything that threatens us. We can securely and confidently rest in his strength and not our own.